You ever notice how one toxic person can drain an entire room of its energy? It doesn't matter if it's at work, at home, or even in your circle of friends. One person with the wrong energy can make you feel small, angry, and powerless. And here's the truth no one likes to admit. You will never escape toxic people. They're everywhere. They come dressed as coworkers, as friends, sometimes even as family. You don't get to choose who they are, but you do get to choose how you respond. See, most people try to fight fire with fire. They argue, they explode, they defend. But here's the problem. The moment you do that, you've already lost. Because toxic people thrive on reaction. They feed on chaos. And the more you give, the more they win. Smart people, truly smart people, play a different game. They don't just survive toxic people. They disarm them. They shut down the drama before it even starts. They walk away without a scratch while the other person burns themselves out. And the question you need to ask yourself today is this: what if you could learn the exact tricks that smart people use to handle toxic people fast? Tricks that don't require shouting, don't require cutting people off, don't require losing your cool. Because once you know how to do this, you stop being the victim of someone else's behavior and you start becoming the person no toxic person can control. So if you've ever felt drained, manipulated, or trapped by someone's negativity, you're in the right place. Because I'm about to give you 10 genius strategies that will change the way you deal with toxic people forever. Power. Everybody talks about it, but very few people actually understand what it means in human relationships. When you hear the word power, most people imagine dominance. They picture the loudest person in the room, the one who shouts, the one who controls with force, the one who demands attention. But here's the thing, that's not real power. That's insecurity disguised as strength. And the more you understand this, the faster you'll dismantle any toxic person who tries to manipulate you. Let's look at toxic people for a moment. What do they want at the core? Toxic people want control. They don't necessarily want your money. They don't necessarily want your job, and they don't even really want the outcome of the argument. What they want is your emotional energy. They want to know they can get inside your head, stir your emotions, and push your buttons. Why? Because when they can do that, they feel powerful. And that's where most people lose the battle. The second someone raises their voice, insults you, or plays manipulative games, your natural instinct is to react. You snap back, you defend yourself, you explain, you argue, and in that very moment, you've handed your power over to them. You've made their behavior the center of your universe. You're dancing to their music. Smart people flip that script. They redefine what power means. Power isn't about being the loudest voice. Power isn't about proving you're right. Power is about control over yourself. Your emotions, your words, your reactions. When you realize that true strength lies in how little control someone else has over your inner state, you become untouchable. Think about it. The most dangerous people in the world, whether they're leaders, negotiators, or protectors, don't shout when the pressure's on. They stay calm, collected, precise, because the moment you lose your cool, you've lost your clarity. And without clarity, you make mistakes. Toxic people love nothing more than to see you lose that composure. Because when you do, you're playing their game. So how do you redefine power in your relationships? You start by shifting the question. Stop asking, why are they treating me like this? Start asking, why am I allowing them to pull me into this? That small mental shift moves the control from them to you. You stop obsessing over their behavior and you start focusing on your response. Here's a practical trick. When a toxic person tries to provoke you, and they will, don't give them the reaction they're looking for. Instead of raising your voice, lower it. Instead of speeding up your speech, slow it down. Instead of defending yourself against every accusation, stay silent or respond with calm, short statements. You'll notice something fascinating. The moment you don't feed their chaos, they lose momentum. They get frustrated. Why? Because you've just stolen back the power they thought they had over you. I'll give you an example. Imagine you're at work and a colleague keeps throwing little jabs at you in meetings, trying to make you look incompetent. Most people would snap back with a defensive comment, maybe even an insult, and suddenly you're in a heated back and forth in front of your entire team. Who wins there? The toxic person. They got you to break character, and now you look just as petty as them. Now imagine the smart approach. That same colleague throws a jab at you, and instead of reacting, you pause. You smile slightly, stay composed, and continue your point without acknowledging their dig. Or maybe you turn their jab into a neutral statement. Interesting perspective. Let's keep moving forward. That calm presence doesn't just shut them down. It elevates you. The room notices, your composure becomes your strength, and their pettiness becomes obvious. That's power. Another layer of redefining power is about where you invest your attention. Toxic people want the spotlight. They want to occupy your thoughts long after the interaction ends. They want you to replay their words, analyze their actions, waste your energy. Smart people don't give them that privilege. When the interaction ends, it ends. They don't carry it home. They don't rant about it for hours. They don't give it free rent in their mind because your attention is your most valuable currency. Wherever you place it, you're investing your power. This doesn't mean you become passive. Don't confuse composure with weakness. You can set boundaries. You can call out behavior, but you do it on your terms, in your time, with your energy in check. That's the key difference. You're not reacting to them. You're choosing the moment and the manner in which you respond. And that choice keeps the power in your hands. Here's what I want you to remember. Toxic people can only take from you what you give them. If you hand them your anger, they'll use it. If you hand them your insecurities, they'll exploit them. But if you give them nothing, no fuel, no chaos, no emotional reaction, you strip them of the very thing they need to feel powerful. So the next time you're dealing with someone toxic, ask yourself this: who's really in control here? Are they controlling me by pulling strings, or am I in control by choosing not to play their game? That one question can shift your entire approach. Because at the end of the day, power in relationships isn't about domination. It's about presence. It's about self-command. It's about standing so firmly in who you are that no one else gets to decide how you feel, how you act, or how you show up. That is what makes you stronger than any toxic person. That is what makes you untouchable. There's a common misconception out there that the only way to deal with toxic people is to cut them off completely, block them, erase them, walk away, disappear. And yes, sometimes that's the right move. But let's be real, life doesn't always give us that luxury. You can't always block your boss. You can't always walk away from a parent, a sibling, or a family member you're connected to. Sometimes the toxic person is tied to you by blood, by work, by circumstances you can't change. So what do you do then? This is where smart people separate themselves from everyone else. They understand a powerful truth. You don't have to disconnect to protect yourself. You just have to detach. And there's a massive difference between the two. Disconnecting means removing yourself physically. Detaching means removing yourself emotionally. See, toxic people don't need your physical presence to mess with you. What they need is your emotional reaction. They want to know they can rattle you, that their words will stick in your head, that their behavior will pull you into the storm. And once you understand this, you realize that your greatest weapon is not distance, it's detachment. Detachment is about staying present without being pulled under. It's about being in the room, but not letting the energy of that person take over your own state. Think of it like this. When a storm is raging outside, you don't stand out there in the rain with no umbrella. You put on a coat, you cover yourself, you protect your energy. The storm still exists, but it no longer controls you. That's exactly what detachment does. Now, how do you practice it? Let me introduce you to one of the most effective psychological strategies, the gray rock method. Imagine you are literally a gray rock, uninteresting, neutral, and unreactive. When a toxic person comes at you with drama, you don't give them the fuel of your emotions. You don't argue. You don't over-explain. You don't rise to the bait. You become boring. You respond with short, neutral statements. You show no visible reaction. And just like someone trying to start a fire with wet wood, they quickly realize there's nothing here to burn. Think about how powerful this is. Toxic people thrive on emotional payoff. If you get angry, they win. If you cry, they win. If you defend yourself endlessly, they win. But if you stay detached, if you show them nothing, you rob them of their reward. Over time, they either back off or turn their attention elsewhere because you're no longer worth the effort. Now, let me be clear. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you become cold or robotic. It means you choose what you care about. You decide what deserves your energy and what doesn't. And toxic behavior, it doesn't. That's the key. Let me give you an example. Imagine you have a family member who constantly criticizes you. No matter what you do, it's never enough. You get a promotion. They say, well, when are you getting the next one? You buy a new car. They say that's a waste of money. You share your dreams. They tell you it's unrealistic. Most people in this situation would either explode in frustration or withdraw in silence, carrying the resentment inside. But smart people, they detach. They don't argue with the criticism and they don't internalize it. They learn to let the words pass through them without sticking. They listen without absorbing. They nod, they move on. And inside they know those words have no power. This is emotional self-defense. Just like you wouldn't hand your wallet to a thief, you don't hand your peace of mind to a toxic person. Detachment is that lock on your emotional door. Here's another trick. Practice limiting the depth of your conversations. Toxic people often look for openings, little cracks where they can slip in and pull you into their negativity. Don't give them that. Keep interactions surface level. Stay polite. Stay professional. But don't dive deep into personal topics where they can manipulate you. It's like keeping your guard up in a sparring match. You can engage, but you don't expose yourself. And here's the beauty of detachment. When you stop being emotionally available for their games, you take back control because while they're still trying to bait you, you've already moved on. Your energy is elsewhere. You're focused on your work, your goals, your peace, and the gap between their chaos and your calm grows bigger and bigger. That gap is your freedom. One of the hardest lessons people learn is that you don't always have to win the fight. You don't always have to prove yourself right. Sometimes the strongest move is to not play at all. That's what detachment gives you, the ability to stand in the presence of toxicity without letting it touch you. Now let's take this to the long game. When you practice detachment consistently, something shifts inside of you. You begin to realize that your emotional state is yours alone. No one gets access to it without your permission. And once you taste that kind of power, you'll never go back because you stop reacting to every jab, every insult, every manipulation. You start choosing, you start deciding who and what gets a response from you. And suddenly the toxic people who used to drain you lose their grip. So remember this, disconnection isn't always possible, but detachment always is. You can sit across from someone toxic and feel nothing. You can listen to their words without absorbing them. You can keep your cool while they burn themselves out. That's the difference between living at the mercy of toxic people and living in control of yourself. The storm doesn't go away. The toxic person may not change, but you change. You become steady, unshakable, untouchable. And when you can detach without disconnecting, you win the battle every single time without even lifting a finger. Boundaries. People hear that word and they think it's about being rude, shutting people out, or building walls so high that no one can reach you. But boundaries aren't walls. They are weapons. They're not designed to keep people away. They're designed to protect your energy, your time, and your sanity. And when you use them the right way, they become one of the most powerful tools against toxic people. Here's the truth. Toxic people don't respect boundaries by default. They test them, they push them, they poke at them to see if you'll cave. That's what makes them toxic. Their behavior thrives on violating limits. They talk over you, they guilt trip you, they pressure you, they take advantage of you. And if you don't draw a line, they'll keep taking until there's nothing left. Most people struggle with boundaries because they confuse them with conflict. They think if I say no, I'll look mean. If I stand my ground, they'll think I'm selfish. But this is the exact trap toxic people want you to fall into. They want you to feel guilty. They want you to second guess yourself. Because the moment you do, they've already won. Smart people, though, understand something different. They know boundaries aren't selfish. Boundaries are a declaration of self-respect. They say, this is what I will allow, and this is what I will not. And the moment you get comfortable enforcing them, you shift the balance of power. Think about it. If you're in a relationship with someone who constantly manipulates you into doing things you don't want to do, what happens when you finally say, no, I'm not doing that? That doesn't work for me. You've just sent a shockwave through their control system because suddenly their tricks don't work. Suddenly you're not the easy target they thought you were. And that disruption forces them to recalibrate. Now, boundaries only work if you're consistent. You can't set them once and then abandon them the moment someone pushes back. Toxic people will push back. They'll test you harder after the first no. They'll guilt trip you, play the victim, or even get aggressive. And this is where most people fail. They fold under pressure. But smart people, they hold the line. They repeat the boundary calmly, firmly, and without apology. And eventually the toxic person realizes there's no way through. Let me give you a practical example. Say you have a coworker who keeps dumping their work onto your plate. The first time they ask, you might politely decline, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. They'll probably push, oh, come on, it won't take you long. This is the test. Most people get uncomfortable and give in. But if you're smart, you repeat your boundary. I said I don't have the bandwidth. Please take it up with the manager if it's urgent. Calm, direct. No apology. That's how boundaries become weapons. They cut off manipulation before it can get traction. Another thing about boundaries, you don't need to over-explain them. This is where people make mistakes. They say no, then they give a 3-paragraph justification for why they can't do something. Toxic people love that because the more you explain, the more material they have to argue against. Smart people keep it short. A simple no, that doesn't work for me is enough. Period. The less you say, the stronger your stance. Boundaries also protect your emotional energy. Maybe you have a relative who loves to drag you into gossip and negativity. Every time you visit, it's the same cycle of drama. Instead of engaging, you set a boundary. I don't want to talk about other people like this. They roll their eyes, they push back, they try to bait you. You don't budge, you change the subject or walk away if needed. Over time, they either stop bringing it up around you or they expose themselves as unwilling to respect your limits. Either way, you win. And here's something important. Boundaries are not for them. They're for you. You don't set boundaries hoping someone else will change. You set them so you can stay aligned with your values, your energy, and your peace. Whether they respect it or not is irrelevant. What matters is that you enforce it. Now let's talk about delivery. The way you enforce boundaries matters just as much as the boundary itself. If you scream, beg, or plead, you look reactive and toxic people thrive on that. But if you deliver your boundary with calm, steady confidence, it becomes untouchable. Tone is everything. When your words are clear and your tone is calm, there's nothing to argue with. That calmness is your weapon. Over time, enforcing boundaries also rewires how you see yourself. Each time you say no and stand your ground, you build self-respect. You teach yourself that your needs matter. And when you start living that truth, toxic people lose their hold on you. They can't manipulate someone who refuses to bend. They can't control someone who refuses to apologize for existing. Here's the final piece. Boundaries create freedom. People think freedom comes from cutting toxic people out completely. But real freedom comes from knowing that no matter who you're dealing with, you can protect yourself. You could sit across from the most manipulative person in the world and still walk away with your peace intact. Why? Because your boundaries are your shield and you've learned how to use them like a weapon. So remember this. Toxic people will always push. They will always test. But the line you draw is the line that defines you. Stand behind it, enforce it calmly, repeat it without apology. And every time you do, you make it crystal clear. Your life, your energy, your peace are not up for negotiation. That is how smart people win. When it comes to toxic people, the real battleground isn't the office, the family gathering, or the relationship. The real battleground is your emotions. That's what they're after. Toxic people are emotional predators. They don't care about logic. They don't care about facts. They don't care about fairness. What they care about is control. And the fastest way to control someone is to manipulate how they feel. If they can make you angry, they've won. If they can make you insecure, they've won. If they can make you doubt yourself, they've won. Because the second you lose your emotional balance, you lose clarity. And when you lose clarity, you lose control. That's the game. And most people don't even realize they're playing it. Smart people, though, understand this truth. They know that whoever controls their emotions controls the outcome. And that's why they master the emotional game. They don't just manage their reactions. They weaponize their composure. They know that the calmest person in the room is the one with the most power. Think about it. Toxic people thrive on chaos. They push buttons just to see you react. They escalate, hoping you'll escalate back. But when you don't take the bait, when you stay cool, calm, unshaken, you disarm them completely. It's like trying to wrestle with water. They can't get a grip. So how do you master this emotional game? It starts with awareness. You have to recognize when you're being pulled in. Notice your body, notice your breath. When your heart rate spikes, when your jaw tightens, when your voice starts to rise, that's your signal. That's the moment you know. They're trying to pull me into the trap. And once you can see the trap, you can step around it. One of the simplest but most effective techniques is to pause before you respond. That pause is power. It stops you from blurting out words you'll regret. It gives you time to think, and it unsettles the toxic person. They expect you to fire back instantly. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you take a beat, suddenly you're not reacting, you're choosing. And choice is where your strength lies. Another powerful move is to control your tone. Toxic people use tone as a weapon. Sharp words, raised voices, sarcastic jabs. They try to throw you off balance with sound. But here's what you can do. Lower your tone, slow your speech. Speak with calm precision, because tone carries more weight than words. And when your tone is steady while theirs is frantic, everyone watching knows exactly who's in control. Let's put this into a real-life example. Say you're in a meeting and a toxic coworker suddenly criticizes you in front of the team. Most people would snap back defensively or stumble trying to justify themselves. But imagine you master the emotional game. Instead of reacting, you pause, you breathe, and you respond slowly, evenly. Thank you for your feedback. Let's look at the facts and keep moving forward. Calm, clear. In that moment, the toxic person looks erratic, and you look unshakable. That's power. Now, here's another piece. Don't argue feelings with facts. This is where people waste endless energy. Toxic people love to argue from emotion, exaggerations, blame, dramatics. And when you try to counter emotion with logic, you lose. Because you can't rationalize with irrationality. The smarter move is to disengage from the emotion altogether. Acknowledge it briefly, then redirect. For example, I hear that you're upset. Let's focus on what we can actually solve. You don't get sucked into the drama. You shift the conversation back to ground you can control. Mastering the emotional game also means mastering yourself outside of the moment. Think about it like training. Athletes don't win championships on game day. They win because they train for it long before. Same with your emotions. If you're constantly stressed, exhausted, or on edge, toxic people will find it easy to push your buttons. But if you're taking care of yourself, if you're grounded, focused, self-aware, then when the test comes, you're ready. That's why practices like deep breathing, mindfulness, even journaling aren't just wellness buzzwords. They're tactical training. They build your capacity to stay calm under fire. Because make no mistake, dealing with toxic people is combat. It's psychological combat. And if you don't prepare, you'll get blindsided. Here's another trick. Decide ahead of time how you'll respond. If you know a certain person always pushes the same button, maybe they guilt trip you, maybe they belittle you, maybe they play victim, prepare your response in advance. That way, when it happens, you're not scrambling. You already know, if they say this, I'll respond with that. It keeps you steady like a fighter who's already rehearsed their counterpunch. And remember, sometimes the best move in the emotional game is no move at all. Silence can be louder than any argument. A calm stare, a moment of quiet, a refusal to engage. These are incredibly powerful. Toxic people hate silence because they can't manipulate it. They can twist your words, but they can't twist what you never said. Over time, when you consistently master the emotional game, something incredible happens. Toxic people start avoiding you. Why? Because you're no fun. You don't give them the drama, the chaos, the emotional fireworks they crave. You've become immune to their tricks, and predators don't waste energy on prey they can't control. They go looking for easier targets. And this mastery doesn't just protect you from toxic people, it elevates you in every area of your life. Because emotional control is magnetic. People trust those who stay calm under pressure. Leaders are defined not by how they act when things are easy, but by how they respond when things are falling apart. And when you become that person, the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, doesn't fuel the fire, you become someone everyone looks to in the storm. So ask yourself this, are you playing the emotional game or are you being played by it? Because the truth is, toxic people can't actually control you. They can only control what you give them. And once you stop giving them your reactions, once you start mastering your own emotions, you become the one running the show. That's the secret. The game isn't about controlling them. It's about controlling you. And when you do that, when you own your emotions fully, no toxic person on this planet can touch you. Most people want quick wins when dealing with toxic people. They want the magic phrase that shuts someone down instantly. The perfect comeback that leaves the room in awe. The one-time boundary that fixes the problem forever. And while those tricks work in the moment, the truth is that dealing with toxic people isn't a one-and-done battle. It's a long game. If you want real freedom, if you want lasting control, you need to stop thinking about winning the moment and start thinking about winning the war. See, toxic people don't usually burn out after one confrontation. They come back, they adapt, they try new tactics. If you beat them once, they'll test you again to see if it was luck or if you're really unshakable. And that's why smart people don't waste energy on temporary victories. They focus on the long game of influence. They know the real win isn't shutting someone down once. It's building a life where toxic people can no longer touch them. Let's break down what that actually means. First, it means you stop chasing validation from toxic people. This is one of the biggest traps people fall into. They think, if I can just prove my point, if I can just show them I'm right, if I can just win this argument, then they'll respect me. Wrong. Toxic people don't care about fairness or truth. They care about control. And the more you chase their validation, the more control you hand them. Smart people flip this. They stop trying to win toxic approval and start investing their energy in people and environments that actually matter. They ask themselves, why am I wasting my breath on someone who doesn't want to see me win when I could be building relationships with people who actually support me? That's the long game, shifting your energy from pointless battles to meaningful growth. Second, playing the long game means patience. Toxic people are often their own worst enemy. Their negativity, their manipulation, their constant drama, it eventually catches up with them. People get tired of the act. Colleagues stop trusting them. Friends distance themselves. Families set limits. Over time, they isolate themselves without you having to do a thing. But here's the key. You have to let them self-destruct without being dragged into their mess. That takes patience and discipline. Think of it like this. You don't win chess by flipping the board over when you're frustrated. You win by thinking several moves ahead. Same with toxic people. They may win a battle here and there. They may rattle you. They may land a jab. They may even embarrass you once. But if you stay consistent with your boundaries, your detachment, your emotional control, in the long run, you're the one who wins. Because you're building strength while they're burning energy. Here's a real-life example. Imagine a coworker who constantly undermines you, spreads rumors, and tries to make you look bad. If you chase them down every single time they take a shot at you, you'll burn yourself out. But if you play the long game, you focus on doing your job with excellence, staying professional, and documenting everything. Over time, the pattern of their behavior reveals itself. People start noticing, and when the moment comes, when leadership finally has to make a call, who do you think comes out on top? The professional who stayed consistent, or the person who is constantly stirring chaos. The long game always exposes the truth. Another part of this long game is conserving your energy. Toxic people want you to waste it on them. They want to keep you spinning in circles, constantly explaining, defending, reacting. But smart people know energy is currency. They spend it wisely. They don't blow it on battles that don't matter. They save it for building their careers, their relationships, their health, their dreams. And here's the irony. The more you invest in yourself, the less impact toxic people have, because your world gets bigger while theirs stays small. Let's talk influence. Influence isn't about forcing people to change. You will never change a toxic person by arguing, nagging, or proving, but you can influence the dynamic by changing yourself. When you become calmer, they lose their chaos. When you become detached, they lose their control. When you become consistent with boundaries, they lose their leverage. Your transformation forces the dynamic to shift, and that's influence, and influence grows stronger the longer you practice it. Think about martial arts. You don't walk into a dojo and master everything in a day. You train, you repeat, you refine until your skills become second nature. Same with dealing with toxic people. At first, holding your ground feels awkward. Detaching feels unnatural. Staying calm when provoked feels impossible. But the more you practice, the stronger you get. And one day you realize you're not even trying anymore. You've become the kind of person toxic people can't control. That's the ultimate long game win. You stop seeing toxic people as threats and start seeing them as tests. Each time they push, you get sharper. Each time they provoke, you get calmer. Each time they try to manipulate, you reinforce your boundaries. Instead of weakening you, they're training you. They're unintentionally making you stronger. And that strength pays dividends in every area of your life. Because here's the final truth. Playing the long game of influence isn't just about surviving toxic people. It's about becoming someone who rises above them entirely. Someone whose self-worth doesn't hinge on the opinions of others. Someone whose calm presence outshines any chaos. Someone whose life is too full of purpose and progress to be derailed by drama. So when you're tempted to fight every little battle, step back and ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Or am I better off saving it for the long game? Because in the end, the toxic person isn't your opponent. They're just noise. Your real opponent is the part of you that wants quick wins, that craves validation, that gets pulled into distractions. Beat that part of yourself, and you've already won. Play the long game. Build your influence. Let your composure, your boundaries, your consistency speak louder than any argument. Over time, you won't just handle toxic people. You'll outlast them, outgrow them, and outshine them. That's how smart people win. That's how you win. At the end of the day, toxic people will always exist. You can't control where they show up, and you can't control how they behave, but you can control one thing, and it's the only thing that truly matters: how you choose to respond. That choice is your freedom. That choice is your power. You've now seen the tools. Redefining power so no one dictates your emotions. Detaching so you stay in the room without being dragged into the storm. Setting boundaries that protect your peace like armor. Mastering your emotions so you can't be manipulated. And playing the long game so you outlast every test and come out stronger than you went in. This isn't about winning arguments. This isn't about proving anyone wrong. This is about becoming untouchable. This is about becoming the kind of person who no toxic energy can shake, break, or control. Because the truth is, the most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest, the angriest, or the most manipulative. The most dangerous person is the one who cannot be moved. And that's who you're becoming. Someone steady, someone unshakable, someone who knows their worth so deeply that no toxic person can ever take it away. So the next time a toxic person tries to pull you into their chaos, remember this: you don't need to fight to win. You don't need to react to prove your strength. Your calm, your control, your consistency, that's your victory. Play the game smarter. Guard your energy fiercely and walk through this world with the unshakable confidence of someone who knows the truth. No toxic person has power over you unless you hand it to them. Stand tall, stay steady, and never, ever give your power away.